Hello everyone and welcome to this video. Today I'm going to be teaching you about building your own tools. Typically in the realm of programming for Adobe, we're trying to create tools to sell, whether they're scripts, extensions, or plugins, but sometimes creating your own specific tools for your own personal projects or your own work can be really useful, and it's just like a nice thing to have to yourself, and it will ultimately give you more time to do the things you want to do. So today I'm going to be going over this cover art generator called Blackbird that I've developed over the course of a year or so now, continually using on real world projects, finding the problems that are in it through these real world experiences, improving it, and then I'm even going to show you a further improvement that I'm working on for this. And this is going to be a plugin that uses GPU processing to speed up the render times of these cover arts that I make. So without further ado, let's jump into it. First off, why did I make this cover art generator tool? Well, I have a client called DJ Roller, who's a DJ who lives in Australia, and he always makes these kind of cover art videos. We do lots of different work together with actual music production, mastering, and a cappella kind of stuff, but we also, for a long time now, have created videos. You've probably seen a lot of his clips featured in some of my tutorials in the past, whether it's someone, going crazy as a DJ or just using clips from that he's provided me. And through our work together, I've learned a lot about editing, and I've also started to develop a lot of tools for myself to help improve my workflow. I work with DJ Roller because I enjoy our long creative relationship that we've had, and over time we've started to create different things that have required different tools. And sometimes we have certain types of project like these cover art videos, which are very repetitive and can easily be automated, and the styles are almost always the same with slight variations. So creating a script and now a plugin has really improved everything and made everything go smoothly. Now, I don't get paid a lot for these videos. In fact, sometimes I don't even get paid. I do these for fun and to be creative and as these sort of testing grounds for tools that I create. There's a whole separate topic about whether I should be getting paid for a particular project or not, but in this case, I do a lot of these out of the kindness of my heart and mainly just for the fun and creativity of it. And with not getting really paid much for these type of projects, creating an automation tool really makes the small amount of money I make off of it worth it. So let's say I make $40 on one of these 3-minute cover art videos. If I can just click a couple buttons and have a whole bunch of videos done and pick one of the best ones, then that makes my job super easy. So first, let me explain exactly what these cover art videos are so that you can understand how the concept can easily be turned into automation. So like I said, a lot of times these cover art videos are pretty much the exact same, and you might be able to even imagine what I mean when I say a cover art video. If I just scrub through here on this basic example, you can see that it kind of just has a couple of characters, some text, a background, and the elements themselves actually can vary. So sometimes there's a background, a text layer, a character layer, so to speak, or the artist of the remix or song that I'm working on. So inside of the script, we have these different automations basically to individualize different texts, whether they're text layers or text images. We have one to separate dynamic character layers, or sort of main layers I call them, and then a background layer, which is more likely to be separate, static, and have different kinds of things applied to it. And generally, these kind of videos are basically snippets or entire lengths of a remix that he's working on. And what my job is to do is give it a bit of animation and vibe based on the actual song itself. And due to these being electronic in nature typically, adding some kind of camera shake, chromatic aberration, and these kind of effects is really all that's necessary a lot of times. So let's say we have this nice gradient background, we have a layer for 2 of these artists, and then we have like a logo and or a text layer. Sometimes they might be flattened together, so sometimes the text will be flattened on the background or the logo will be flattened. This is totally fine since we're just applying basic, simple animations to them. But basically what we want to do is be able to stack them one on top of the other, just like a simple layer setup. And then we also need a way to separate them into little individual cuts. So there's a feature inside of here for scene separation, which you can do based on markers or seconds. So once I dial in the number of seconds between each transition, whether it's 4 beats, 8 beats, a bar, a verse, whatever I choose it to be based on the energy levels, then I can simply input that and it's often very specific, like 8.73, and that will put me right on track. And I have a simple selection thing inside of this script, which I just put a prefix or a suffix on the layers that I want to identify. So like if I wanted to, I could say, change this to character. And if I add character to say Jack Harlow or Bruno Mars here, then they're going to be sort of locked into that position as a character. And what's going to be applied to the background versus the character versus the text layers is going to be different. So the background, like I said, might be stable and stationary. The characters might be moving around to the music excitedly or relaxedly. And then we might have some chromatic aberration and cool animation for the text. And what I also want is, because I have these separated into increments to sort of change things up, everything needs to be different each time. So sometimes the characters need to be animating, sometimes the background needs to be animating, or sometimes the text needs to be animating, or any combination of those. So we have all the layers, we stack them together, we separate them out into scenes, and then we apply automations randomly, and I have a whole effects list that applies random effects to these based on preset styles. So usually I have like a DJ roller style, one specifically for him. I have position, scale, rotation, glitch, basics, random. And then I also have transitions built in, which are basically preset transition compositions, which get overlaid between those scenes. And then I also have a grain setting, camera shake, because camera shake is always a nice post-process thing to do. And I think most importantly, aside from all these standard setups up here, you can change the name, the width, the height, the audio item, the audio in and out if you want to customize it to be a shorter snippet. The coolest thing in my opinion is the iterations. I could say 10 iterations here, fill in all my settings, and this is going to create as many iterations as I tell it. The reason I do this is because when I set this up, it's not always going to be perfect. Sometimes, just the characters will be animating for a bit and there's no variation, then the text isn't animating. Sometimes things will be too intense and I'll need to dial the settings back. Maybe the camera shake is too much, so I need to then change it. And sometimes you just take a couple of iterations to get it right. So I basically have this thing to do iterations. Each one of these is going to be unique. I can hit generate and generate as many iterations as I want. As you can see here, I have like 5 generated. They look pretty similar, but what's different is going to be the actual values of the effects applied. The animations and everything will be slightly modified because they're all set up to be random. Both the number of the effects that are applied to things, the effects and the styles that are applied, and the intensity of everything. It varies by scene and by iteration. So I can basically do a whole setup, get everything set up maybe with one simple iteration. If I say that's good, I've locked in my scene separation and output folder and everything. I can then sort of just generate 15 iterations, go grab a coffee while it generates them, and then render them. I can even do an automatic rendering system just so that it runs overnight. And this makes it super easy then to just go to sleep, wake up, and then look through all of the clips. Maybe that one looks bad, throw it out. This one looks good, we'll keep that. This other one looks good, and then we compare, find the best one. If there's small tweaks that need to be made, we might just make those and then adjust the video and export it individually, or we might do an entire new setup where we change the camera shake, the transition types, etc. So that alone, I can get a video done if everything is set up properly in literally about 5 minutes. In 5 minutes, I can make 10, 15, 23 plus minute long videos with separated scenes, different animations, and everything pretty much ready to go. And because I have this tool, I can basically have more time to do other work on my computer. I can have this After Effects project ready to be rendered, do my normal work throughout the day, and then before I go to bed, just have it render overnight and have it not impede anything else. And of course, because I'm not getting paid as much for something like this, it's also super efficient and makes it much more worth it. But then there are other things that come along as you test this in the real world. Maybe you find normal bugs as you're testing different settings, and these are simple things that you go back and fix. But what about speed and optimization? It can get really heavy having 15 compositions that are 3 minutes long, full HD, have lots of layers, effects, and are all rendering out in After Effects. So that can vary anywhere from 30 minutes to 3 hours for a single video export, which is why I do it overnight. So now we're moving on into the territory of further optimizing things. And this leads me to sort of create my own post-processing GPU-based plugin, another build it your own tool that I'm creating to further increase the speed of this and also provide a post-processing tool for the future. Aside from all these settings within the script that I've created here, I used to also have a grade setting, so I could choose a color grade and it would apply it. So what I decided to do is bundle up all together all the different post-processing things that I do into a GPU-based plugin. Because if you think about it, we have grain, camera shake, we had a grade option, and I almost always apply some sort of glow and things like that to sort of just polish up the final video. Like I'll have my iteration complete, but then I'll apply an overall camera shake so that the entire scene moves on top of the individual characters to really give it some dynamics, adding grain to sort of blend everything together, a grade to further stylize and blend things, and then of course the camera shake options, and sometimes like a post-process glow. But me just adding those adds a ton of render time. If I max out the grain, if I max out the camera shake and turn on motion blur, my render time goes from 30 minutes to 3 hours. And that's because a lot of it is CPU based. And so the cherry on top is creating what I call NT Finisher. This is, again, another tool that I use for myself. Maybe things like this in the future can be developed into something that the public wants, but there are already so many post-processing tools. I just wanted to make my own GPU post-processing tool to both learn a bunch of stuff for GPU processing as well as just increase my render speeds. Because if I can take all those post-processing things that increase my render time 3x or 5x and make it even faster, my render time is actually going to go down overall. So here's a simple example of a clip. Maybe you start with this clip or you render out the whole thing and you're ready to post-process it. We apply the finisher, and then we have grain settings that I've already set up, which this is so fast. We're talking 43 milliseconds per frame. That's like 100 frames a second on a good day. And I've even started to implement the grading LUTs that I have already preset and used to use. They used to be so slow that I totally took them out of the script, but now that I have them in a GPU plugin, they're processing so fast. So I can start to do all my post-processing with this tool on top of my script, run the script to create everything from scratch, and then use the plugin to finish everything up afterward. And I'm still working on adding a post-processing glow, blur, and shake for this, but right now I have the grain and the grade, and it's so fast. These do a ton of like thick processes that are really hard to do, and it's probably 10 to 20 times faster than CPU processing. So that's kind of how I feel about building my own tools. They're really used to save you time. And remember, you can build your own tools too, and you don't have to make tools to sell to people. You don't have to try and always make a profit. Sometimes doing these self-made tools will give you ideas for things you can make profit with, or even into something that you can develop in the future to something that you can sell to others and make profit. But the overall goal here is to really save money, save us time to do things that we want to do, and to just be creative and have time to work on stuff that we're passionate about and want to integrate into our workflows. But that's going to do it for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, make sure you hit the thumbs up button down below, hit subscribe and the bell icon to be notified of when new videos come out. You can also join as a member to get videos way in advance of the public, and you'll be able to see them up to a week in advance. And I hope you enjoyed this video on how to build your own tools and a look into the ones I'm creating. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.